My name is Chris. Today I have a PC build for you. By the end of this video, you will know how to assemble a PC from scratch, and you don't need any experience. We'll go step by step, and I'll list the basic tools very quickly and the main components that's being used. First, you need a Phillips head screwdriver. Number 2 is the most important thing you need, but a magnetic tip will make your life much easier. Anti-static protection is recommended. I'm not using it here. Many of our workbenches have protection from that. And then the small container egg cartons work great. Zip ties or Velcro straps for cable management. Usually cases come with them, but having extra does help. And then the flashlight. Your phone could work, but a small, powerful flashlight for looking into those tight spaces is good. And then thermal paste. Most coolers come with it if it's not pre-applied, but having extra is helpful as well. And then the USB flash drive, 8 gig or higher, to install your OS after your build. There's other tools that could be useful, like scissors or hand snips for opening packages and cutting zip ties, but the basic thing you really need is a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Remember to hit like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start preparing the case. For the sake of space and getting footage, I'm gonna get back to this. So right now I'm just going to take off the side panels, take out the manual and the hardware, and then we're going to do a component walkthrough and explain what everything does. So first, we have the case itself. I have a Zalman S2 style mid tower. It holds and protects everything. And then next, we have our CPU. I'm using the Ryzen 5, which is the brain of the computer. And then the CPU cooler. It keeps the processor from overheating. Then we have our SSD NVMe for storage, Windows, apps, and files. And then our RAM using DDR5 for short-term memory. And we have our power supply, delivers power to all the components. And then our Western Digital HDD for long-term storage. And then the motherboard itself, I'm using the Asus Prime B650 Plus. And this is what everything connects to. Now I'm gonna unbox the motherboard, and I'm just taking out all the hardware and I'm putting the motherboard on top of the anti-static bag and putting that on top of the box itself. And this is what I'm going to use as my workbench. So now we can set up the motherboard. I'm going to start by installing the CPU. So I'm just taking that out the box here and getting that prepped. So you want to lift up this retention arm and you want to remove this plastic cover that covers the CPU socket. So right here I'm showing you the alignment triangle that's on the socket where the CPU goes, right here in that top right corner. And these processors are keyed, so it goes directly into the socket, so you should not have to force it in. You should be able to just drop it in very gently. And right here you can see that triangle on the top left side is going to align with the triangle that's on the socket. So this is very simple, guys, but you just want to make sure that it aligns properly, because you don't want to bend those pins. Those pins are what makes contact, and it could cause a lot of problems if one of those pins get bent. But again, this is very simple. You just drop it in, make sure it's aligned, and lock down that retention arm. And then here's your CPU cooler. As you can see, this has thermal paste applied already. If yours doesn't, it should come with thermal paste, and you want to make sure you apply that thoroughly and properly. Some people just do an X, some people do about a quarter size dot in the middle. You want to make sure you don't over apply or under apply. You want to do it just right. But again, this one, the thermal paste is already applied. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking off the mounts that were where the cooler goes. And then now I'm installing the cooler, and you want to make sure you tighten those screws down in the X pattern to help that thermal paste spread evenly on the top of the processor. This is something that you want to do right the first time. You don't want to keep doing it and undoing it. You want to make sure once that thermal paste is applied, that cooler stays on top of the processor. Now we're installing the RAM. Usually when you install the RAM, you're going to use slots A2 and B2. So not the slots right next to each other, but the second slot and then a slot 2 over from that. Again, this is very simple. You just open up those clips, you line up the notches, and then you press it firmly on both ends until it clicks. So as you can see, I'm pressing down right here, and everything is in nice and solid on the motherboard. Next, we have our NVMe SSD. I'm going to install that. You want to locate the M.2 slot, and then when you start putting in this SSD, it goes in at a slight angle, at about a 45-degree angle. Usually the screw for, or at least for these ASUS motherboards, the screw is inside the motherboard case, and it's a very small screw. It's easier to use a number 1 Phillips head for this. A number 2 would work, but it could cause you to strip the screw out. So a number 1 Phillips screwdriver is better for installing this. And a tip, make sure you pull that little screw out of the motherboard box, because the screw does not come with the SSD itself. So if you don't locate that screw in the beginning, you might spend a lot of time trying to find that one little screw that goes to it. Also, these SSDs have a standoff as well that helps it rise up or stand off the motherboard. You want to locate that and make sure you install that if your motherboard calls for that, because if not, you'll install it at an angle and it cannot have good contact, or it can bend or break. Now I'm preparing the case. I'm continuing that part. Here I have the IO shield. You can't really see the lettering on the shield, but you want to make sure that you line up this IO shield properly and that the ports are going to line up properly. So you go from the inside of the case and then you press it towards the outside of the case, nice and flush. Make sure all your sides and corners are flush with the case. Again guys, like and subscribe. It will be much appreciated and it will help this channel grow so we can continue to put out good content for you. So as you can see right here, I'm taking my time with this. It's not difficult, but these things you just don't want to rush. And then right here on the side, I have my egg carton that I use to organize the screws. So I'm just getting organized right here, making sure all of my screws are together, then I'm not mixing things up. Last thing you want to do is use the wrong screws for the wrong application. Yeah, I get if it works, but they give us the proper screws for a reason, and they give us more screws than what we really need, so you should have a lot left over, but you just want to make sure you're using the right screws for the right application so you're not messing things up, bending or breaking things. You don't have screws sticking out too far or screws that's not long enough and it's pushing things down too much. So here are the standoffs for the motherboard. This case already has 6 standoffs pre-installed, so I only need to install an additional 3 for the motherboard that's going inside of this case. So right here I'm pointing out where these standoffs are, and these are the slots that the motherboard is going to be screwing into. And then right here at the top you can see there are no standoffs, so this is where I'm going to put these additional standoffs, and I'm just screwing them in hand tight. I'm not tightening them down with the tool yet, because when I go to screw in the motherboard it'll tighten it down more. Okay, so now I'm going to do a bench test. I'm going to use this VGA to HDMI adapter to connect to the monitor. So right now I've connected this adapter to the HDMI port on the motherboard. This is a older power supply that was in storage, so I'm looking to see if this one actually works. So this 24-pin CPU power cable, as you can see, has 20 pins on one side and then 4 pins that connects to it on the other side. And then this connects to the 24-pin slot on the motherboard. And then you also have an 8-pin connector as well. And this 8-pin connector goes right here on the side. Then I have this 400-watt EVGA power supply. You connect your power cable to the PSU. Then of course you want to make sure you plug up the 3-prong plug into the outlet. This is important because some people are like, why is my motherboard not powering up? But you never connected the power. Simple mistake, but you can get lost in the sauce and forget that. Then of course, turn on the monitor. The monitor's not going to wake up if it's not actually on. So as you can see now, my monitor is on. So you want to locate where your pins are on your motherboard. So these are your power switch pins, very important pins on the motherboard. And what I'm going to do now is a PSU test. So this is a Dr. Power supply tester for ATX boards. And if you see this blue light with the blank screen, that means that the main PSU rails are not turning on and it's a failed PSU. Don't use it, because it can seem like you're getting power, but it's not going to reliably give you power to your system, and it's going to create problems. And then if you have a red light and it's beeping, the tester is warning you it's unsafe, it has failed, do not use that power supply. So the one that I had was not working, so I'm going to use a new power supply. So I'm opening up this box, and since I'm already testing power supplies, of course it's new, it should work, but you could get a new defective power supply. So I'm just going to go ahead and test this straight out of the box. So here it is. It looks just like the other one, but this one is brand new. So I'm plugging it up, and you should get a blue light, and you should get numbers and text with no beep. Your PCU should start running. You should see the fan turn on, and these are the numbers that you want to look for. These are a good sign that your PSU is working properly. And as you can see, I have all the right numbers and all the right signs, so this PSU is working properly. Okay, so now I continue and I plug up the 24 pin connector to the motherboard, and then also the 8 pin connector. So right here, you see where it says Power SW. So it's these two right here. See how I turned it on?
Okay. Okay. Did I do what I need to put?
Now you gotta see if it posts. Okay, so now we can install the motherboard into the case. So you locate your slots on your motherboard and where they're going to go into the standoffs in the case. Again, make sure your ports line up properly with your IO shield. Be patient right here. Make sure it's aligned properly. Just take your time. Make sure you're not over tightening your screws. Make sure your screws are going in straight, not in an angle. And here you can see all of my screws are in. I'm not missing any screws. Everything's aligned, everything's straight, everything is looking good. Okay, so I'm giving you a better angle here. Now you can see the motherboard has been installed in the case. You want to make sure you plan your cable management. Every case is a little bit different. Every situation or every setup is a little bit different. Even the parts that you're using, that your power supply may have longer cables or shorter cables. You may be using modular and non-modular. Here we're using non-modular power cables, so I have more cables than what I would like to have and less space what I would like to have using a mid-tower case. So you want to plug up this case fan right here. And then again, I'm emphasizing good cable management. It's going to help your system run cooler, safer, longer. Plus it just looks more professional and it's easier to repair if you need to get back into it. So here are my case cables. Your front panel USB cable is going to plug into your motherboard right next to the 24-pin socket. Okay, so here's the HD audio cable. You plug that in right there. Listen guys, everything is labeled on the motherboard, and of course you can go to the manual as well. Here we have the USB cable, so we're going to go ahead and plug that in next. And then we have our power switch pins. They plug in right here at the bottom right corner of the motherboard. Now I will tell you, for me, this part is the most difficult part. Not in that it's labor intensive or it's very hard to do, but having fat fingers like me, it's really difficult to get these pins lined up properly. So I'm separating these cables to make it easier to get these plugged in. I'm going to speed up the video right here, so it's not really going to show how difficult it is or how long it takes, but in that small little corner where it's hard to see and it's hard to line things up properly, it can be very tedious, but this is extremely important. This is what's going to cause your PC to power up from the case, and you don't want to break these pins either. So next I'm going to install the HDD. This case comes with a tray that makes it very easy to just pop in the HDD. You want to make sure your slots for your cables are sticking out so you can install your cables. The tray also has screw holes that you can put screws in the side to hold the HDD in the tray. I'm not going to put those screws in because this is for a hardware lab, where these PCs are designed to be taken apart and reassembled. So I'm just going to put it in the tray and slide it in. Okay, so here's my SATA data cable. We're going to plug that in. One end you plug into the HDD itself, and then this one I'm putting through the case. That's going to go to the motherboard SATA port next, but we'll do that a little bit later when we start installing all the cables to the motherboard. So next we're going to start installing our power supply. And if you notice differences on some of these PCs, that maybe SSD is in a different spot than another, or as you can see in this case right here, the IO shield isn't completely lined up. I'm working on several different builds all at once, working with different people, working with interns. So there are things that look different on some of these builds that I'm working on, but the concept or the process is the same. Okay, here I'm plugging in the Molex case connector. And now I'm plugging in the SATA power cable. And this is going to give power to the HDD from the power supply. Again, guys, I emphasize cable management. Good cable management solves a lot of problems. At the end, it's going to make it much easier to button everything up to get your side panels on, especially that back side panel. Being that this is a non-modular PSU, there's a lot of cables, so it's going to be difficult to tuck everything nice and neatly and get that back panel on. So cable management is especially essential here. So I'm just feeding these cables in through the case, and there's different slots on the case where you can feed them in from different places. So you want to locate which slot is best for you to feed your cable in, so you can access the ports or the sockets on the motherboard as easy as possible and as neatly as possible. Okay, so now I'm plugging in the 24-pin connector to the motherboard. Then you plug in your 8-pin connector. And I know we've done this before, but the first time was the bench test to verify that everything was working properly. Now that has been verified, we are connecting everything inside the case. So here you can see I'm using my flashlight, the tight space in the corner of the case. Got everything in nice and snug. Okay, now I can plug in the SATA data cable to the motherboard. Again, these slots are labeled, so you want to plug in probably to slot number 1 if you're not using multiple slots. So here I'm just using the twist ties that came with the packaging, and I use that to tie up the cables, and I tuck them right there in that empty space in the case that's made for extra cables. Then I'm putting in this cable management side panel. This is another thing that sometimes is more difficult or takes more time than what you can see here on the video, having to press against those cables that's sticking out the back. So this can be just a little frustrating and time consuming, but again, with good cable management, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. Now I'm putting in the front side or tempered glass side panel. Of course, remove your plastic. And then when you put your screws in, you should only have to put these screws in hand tight. They do have this directional arrow that points down to let you know the proper orientation, but when you put these screws in, again, they just put them in hand tight. They do have Phillips head slots on them that you can tighten them with the tool, but that's not necessarily hand tight. It's just fine. And then here's the boot up, the moment of truth. Make sure everything is working properly. And what you want to see is your fan spinning, your processor fan, your case fans, your PSU fan. This is where you actually turn on the PC from the button on the case. If you have lights, you should see your lights lighting up inside the case, on the motherboard, on the outside of the case, and then of course your post. Congrats, you just built the PC. Next, install your operating system and upgrade if you would like. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe.